right. Well, again, welcome to CPMC's Town Hall on Reentry Ministries. Every month we have discussions with different reentry ministries and organizations all over the country. And today we are happy to have Bill Gartner with us and some friends of Bill Gartner's over at Gatekeepers. Bill Gartner is at work on two sides of restorative justice, both inside facilities, prisons and jails, and also on the outside in reentry. And Bill Gartner is the leader of Gatekeepers in Washington County in Maryland, a program that helps those that are formerly incarcerated transition back into their communities after serving time in prison. And so at this point, I'm going to kind of toss the virtual mic over to Bill. Welcome, Bill. And if you wouldn't mind, Bill, maybe introducing some of the your friends that will be sharing about the great work there at Gatekeepers. And just so you know, Bill, you're muted, so you'll need to unmute yourself. Sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you, Father Dustin. We're getting our technology in place. And thanks so much for having us. And as we go along, Mike McGarry and Steve Albright and Mark Wilkes will be joining us. And we have a nice short presentation for you. And quite frankly, this is not the first time I've been with two people. It's several years since we've been together, and your group is just so important to what we do every day, and with reentry, with the team that's with me. And if it wasn't for a Catholic chaplain prison ministry in the old penitentiary, the state penitentiary in Baltimore City, where I was locked up as part of my tenure, we wouldn't be here. We would not be here.
There's a basketball coach.
So at any rate, it sounds like there's some interference. So at any rate, this prison ministry that you all have been doing probably longer than I have. I got out of prison 7.5 years ago, and Gatekeepers has been alive since 7 years, and I'd served 8.5 years. But both at the end, when we're finished today, both Steve and Mark, who will join us, are all three ex-offenders and all been touched by chaplains of one sort or another inside the prison. So we're alumni. So we're all together here, and you should be very proud of the three people that you're going to hear from today, and not the least, of course, which is Mike McGarry, who leads the prison ministry for the Order of Malta. So so Gatekeepers started when I got out of prison, and it was a Catholic deacon who gave me the Return of the Prodigal Son book with the year left in my prison sentence. And he said, you're going to do something great when you get out, because you did so many great things before you imploded, and imploded enough to get an 8.5-year sentence. So under this person's tutelage, it gave me the sense of entitlement that I was able to grab a hold of some of the tools that God had given me that I had totally abused, and turned around and started a reentry program in Washington County, Maryland. Now, why did I do it here? Because I ended up in prison here. There are 3 state penitentiaries in Washington County. 3. There is a detention center. So there are a lot of prison business going on in Washington County. It's a very small rural county that is infested with super highways in the area, and merging right here. So it's like a drug capital, mini size, if you will. So therefore, a lot of incarceration, both locally and statewide. And so it made good sense when I walked around and I got out of prison and I decided to try it here, and it took a while. And so we kicked off a reentry program when there was really not much. And because Washington County, as I said, has three state penitentiaries, and the local penitentiary has a couple programs wrapped around it called the Day Reporting Center, which Gatekeepers is involved with, and it has the JSAP, the drug program inside the prison, which we're involved with, and it has the pretrial drug court where we're involved with. We actually went to the courtroom, and there are 300, on a given day, 350 inmates in there, and they're all Washington County people, residents, if you will. And so what happened is the Leo Economic Opportunity Foundation from Notre Dame got in touch with us a year ago and wanted to take a look at us and see what we felt about the cause of poverty in areas like Washington County due to incarceration. So they felt that not the state, not the federal, but Leo feels that the local detention centers are really major cause of incarceration and poverty. So, and I agreed with that. And so we jumped aboard, and we've been working with them on and off and for about 8 months. And we're going to do a 2-year program with them, because not only, in my mind, is poverty caused by incarceration ends in homelessness and whatnot, it also ends in violence, because and there's a lot of violence in this town, and when people get out of the local detention centers, as we know, as much as they try, they're basically warehouses. And so we have less when we went in, we have less than less when we get out. And guess what? They're all local citizens. So bang, that's just a great opportunity for the philosophy that Gatekeepers has. And our philosophy is to have a reentry program run exclusively by ex-offenders and volunteers who have either served as inside the prisons as volunteers or outside the prisons, like the Kairos people, the street reentry people, and the Order of Malta people. We've been able to engage these people very much in this area and partner with them. And then since there are so many ex-offenders in this area, we actually recruit them. And no one really gets paid at Gatekeepers. And we see many people and provide services that are basic simple services. That's our mantra. And Mike McGarry will discuss this with our Business to Living program inside the workbook that we're so proud to be presenting today. So as we go forward, perhaps, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to hit a pause and we'll be happy to answer them. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Mike McGarry. I met Mike on I cold call the office of Malta in New Jersey several years ago. And when I saw on EWTN, I saw a Sunday night show on their prison ministry. And I called and I said, I want to find out what you can do. I said, I need some help. I said, I explained exactly what I just told you, that I'm living in a prison-centered economic engine town. And I said, I'd like to see if you can help us. So I didn't hear anything for a while. And maybe a month or two later, I did a first ever retreat down at the St. Anselm Abbey, the Benedictine Abbey in Washington, D.C. And as I walked into my room and I turned off my phone and threw it down, and before it hit the ground, it actually wasn't off, and there was a buzz, and I picked it up, and it was the head of the Order of Malta. So he wanted to know who I was, and so I said who I was, and ultimately said, I'm going to introduce you to Mr. Mike McGarry. He's in your region, and he'll get in touch with you. And that was 5 years ago. And guess how we got here today? Mike McGarry, he's our next speaker. So I could speak volumes of the Order of Malta and their prison ministry, men and women, and what they do. And but I just, by the very fact that Mike and I have been joined at the hip ever since, we're the same age, we have the same goals of mind, and the Holy Spirit has led us to this. And without going any further with anything, I'm going to turn it over to Mike. Mike has been doing prison ministry since 2013, and
just real quick, before you turn it over to Mike,
Right.
if to let everyone know to please feel free to put in questions in the chat box as the presentation goes on. So feel free to start putting questions in the chat box whenever. That way we'll come to it after the presentation. Sorry about that, Bill. Yeah.
Oh, no problem, Dustin. How about, did you give ashes out yesterday, Father?
Sprinkled. Yeah.
Yeah, right, right. Well, that was funny. I haven't washed my hair yet. I go back to the when I first got ashes in 4th grade, the nuns would not let us wash our foreheads. So I haven't washed my head yet. It was a whole new experience yesterday.
Well, I just have to say briefly, it actually goes better with the gospel, that's telling you not to keep things on your face so that everyone will see that you're praying. So I actually thought, wow, this is actually, I don't feel so awkward following after the gospel when Jesus is telling you to clean yourself up and don't appear like you're praying. With sprinkling, it's a little bit easier. So anyways, that's
Okay.
my
So moving right along with Mike. Mike co-founded the Order of Malta's Federal Association Prison Ministry, and he collectively, I think right now they have over 1,000 members and volunteers participating. And so they have been so instrumental in the Washington, D.C., Maryland area specifically. And they have just taken me on, and like the prodigal son, and they have moved me all over. It's not just Mike, but he has surrounded himself with some great people. And we would never be here without the Order of Malta. Thank you very much. Mike.
Okay, thanks, Bill, and thank you all for being with us today. Particularly, thank you, Karen, and John, other people at the coalition. It's just it's really come a long way, hasn't it? It's amazing. So thank you all. It's great. I want to talk to you about the reentry workbook that Gatekeepers has put together. We'd like to make this workbook available to all of you, everybody here on this conference call, on this webinar, and to other people, all reentry programs in the country. We could. That's our vision. And we want to tell you it's a very inexpensive, cost-effective opportunity. The electronic version costs about 99 cents. And the hard copy is about between $10 and $12. We're working on that. You have to go through Amazon. I want you to know we don't make a dime. Gatekeepers gets nothing out of this. We view this as our contribution, Gatekeepers' contribution to reentry. It's so important. And I think, Mark, should we throw up here's the cover sheet of the workbook. Can we put that on the next slide? Mark was holding it up if you could see it, but if you put that slide up, it's not that important, but it's the cover sheet of the book. But anyway, we view this as our contribution, and it's essentially a free tool that you can put in your reentry toolbox. That's how we look at it. So I'm going to start with a little background about how this came about, and then go over the contents. The workbook is an outgrowth of the Business of Living program that Bill and others have been teaching since 2013. It's been taught at the Gatekeepers office, It's also been taught in state and federal prisons. It's been taught in local jails. It's been taught in recovery homes, detention centers, and as Bill mentioned, right now also in drug court. Over the years, this business of living program that Gatekeepers has been teaching has had over 300 successful graduates. Quite an accomplishment for a mom and pop operation out of Hagerstown, Maryland. Over 300 successful folks, and we found employment for every one of those. But when we started, as a result of that, we started, can people see, okay, my screen keeps going back and forth. I guess you can see me. If you can't, so be it. We'll just move on. But the idea came to us, what can we do to further this business of living and share it with other people? Initially, we thought maybe we'd start Gatekeepers in other jurisdictions, but it's just too, it's too resource intensive that we just don't have the resources, financial and personal. So then we thought about a workbook. Let's put a workbook together. And as Bill mentioned, the program, the business of living, has been taught by Bill and other ex-offenders. Well, the workbook, and this is the beauty of it, it was written entirely by ex-offenders, people who have been through the trauma of reentry. And what's interesting is when people are successful in reentry, they realize that they have a responsibility to give back. And that responsibility for our folks is this workbook. They want you to share it. They're so proud of this workbook, and it reflects what they went through, and hopefully can help other people avoid what they went through. This is important, particularly for this group. This workbook is based on the belief of the joy of the human spirit, that we all have souls. And the business of living that program is designed to reach the depths of the souls of these troubled folks, and to bring out the positive, to bring out the joy, to bring out the belief in themselves. That's our commitment. The workbook is simple, it's direct, it's demanding, but most important, the workbook, it works. It works, as borne out by our graduates. And in the back of the workbook, there are about, I think, 10 or 12 letters from our wonderful, successful graduates, 2 of whom you're going to hear from today when I finish talking. I should note that the workbook is being revised, and the driver of the revision is to take advantage of Bill Gertner's basketball experience. And I don't think that came out, but just real quickly, Bill was a national champion junior college basketball player. He then became a successful assistant and head basketball coach in college. So we have this unique asset. And what we realize is we have to put more of Bill's experience, his coaching experience, into the workbook. And that's exactly what we're doing. And that will be out probably in the next several, I'd say about a month or so. We also realize that we just can't throw this workbook out to you and say, go to it, folks. We put together a very detailed but user-friendly teacher's edition. And I can tell you, I'm a retired lawyer, and I met with Bill and another ex-offender, and I cross-examined them for days, and I'm not exaggerating. So I could get into the depths of the program, how they teach it, because I want that teacher's edition to reflect exactly how they teach it. And it's about 50 pages. It's chock full of instruction, of information, of questions, and it's all designed to stimulate discussion, because that's the key in this reentry. All of us who are in reentry know that you got to get these hardened people who've been traumatized in prison. You got to get them to start to talk, and a lot of them don't talk right in the beginning. You got to start to get them to talk. And so with this instructions and these questions and information that we provide in this workbook, it's designed to bring out the discussions, because when we start having the discussions, these wonderful people start to open up and start to realize that they've got to take responsibility for their life, and they've got to identify their challenges, and they've got to identify the resources they need, and they've got to identify how they're going to get that resource. And this teacher's edition tells how that's going to happen. I wanted to mention one thing. We do use a coaching technique, and it's called repetition. We repeat challenges and the need for resources. It's like a basketball player after practice shooting foul shots. It's like a concert pianist. One person who wants to be a concert pianist. You got to practice, you got to practice, and you got to practice. We find with practicing, people get they get more focused on their life and what they have to do to get better. So now we start with the workbook, and the workbook really is the bottom line is the development and implementation of what you see right on your screen. We call this is the wheel. It's the life plan. It's simple. It almost looks too simple, but I can tell you that the people who've gone through our program love it. They can understand it, and it works. It's based on, as I mentioned, in-depth discussions. They're probably about 10 or 15. Bill, how long's the program? I think the program goes on for several months, but anyway, it's
4 to 6 weeks to begin with, and then the aftercare.
Okay, 6 weeks to begin with, and we take our time going through what we call the 4 pillars. These are the 4 things we concentrate on: occupational, educational, personal, and spiritual. And that's where we spend our time, going through each one of them one at a time, and spending however long it takes to make sure that we're getting the attention of our wonderful participants. They are growing in each one of those areas. We tell them, though, that these areas are all interrelated. And if you don't deal with all 4, if you let down on one, you're running a risk of maybe not having a successful reentry. And I think they get that message. Anyway, the first day is a story. It's just a story, 1 page, a story of a person's first day out. And it's based on the experiences of the people who wrote this book. They know what that's like. And it's a very sobering story, and the decisions that people have to make on that very first day. You know, if things aren't working out, are they going back to the hood? I mean, it's really rough. But at any rate, they have discussions about that, starting to get them thinking about what would they do in that situation. So then let's turn to chapter 2, which you have now here in front. And let's keep going back, keep going back, keep going back, keep going back. More. There you go. Here we go. And this is a list of challenges. These challenges are, like you can see, no realistic home, no safe lodging, lack of reliable transportation, no ID. They go all these lists. We put this up and we go through each one of them. Each one of them. They're in the workbook and the teacher's guide. There's plenty of questions that stimulate conversation, to get them thinking about the home plan, get them thinking about they only have $500, get them thinking that they don't have a GED or they do have a GED, get them focused. And that, you know, you can see the repetition. We start to really hone in on the challenges that they're going to be faced. Let's go to the next chat. Next is chapter 3, the next slide. And this is when it gets up there, this is Professor Abraham Maslow's pyramid. And some of you, the first time I thought I was going back to college and the psychology class or something. And it kind of, there it is. It kind of threw me for a loop. It kind of overwhelmed me. And I'm saying, how is this going to relate to men and women coming out of prison? But I got to tell you, the folks love it. It really is simple. It's got, the pyramid has 5 steps. The first, and we start at the bottom, the basic needs of food and water. The next one is safe and secure housing. And it goes all the way up to the top, which is success, total success. And what we tell them is, you have got to attend to the first 2, the bottom 2, as you're building. The top 3 are as your life plan. But if you don't have safe and secure housing, if you don't have food and clothing, you're going to fail. You're going to fail. So we need to attend to those right off the bat. So that's Maslow. Then next slide. Then what we do is we put up the it's the one anyway. It's the one that yes that That's the end product. That's their life plan. And it's like a coach. What you do is you tell the people why they have to work hard. Why are they working hard? You tell them what the end result is. You're going to win the national championship. You're going to win your conference championship. You're going to have a 500 season. You're going to beat Duke. Whatever it is. That's your life plan. And it's really we refer to it as the bullseye. Let me just explain. In the red is the person who's going, the participant, and the yellow are the goals. In the middle are the resources that they need to attain the goals. Very simple and very understandable and very well liked by the folks we deal with. Then we move to the chapter 5, which is the introduction to the business living program. And what we do is we focus on 4 areas. And we call them the 4 pillars. And I mentioned that: occupational, educational, personal, and spiritual. And we tell the people, they are a business. It's John Doe Inc. It's Mary Doe Inc. You are a business. And if you're a business, they've got to ask themselves, what do they need to do to be successful? What do you need to do? And the success is them. And they begin to realize that they need resources. They can't do it by themselves. That's the big breakthrough. They need resources. And they know the resources are identified in the reentry programs that you run and that we run, and that the resources can be provided by the reentry programs that you run and we run, as well as local social service entities. The next 4 chapters, and just go to the little quadrant, it's just one of those. We break down, let's say we're going to talk about educational, and we talk about, say occupational, that's the first one, because I happen to have some information on the occupational right in front of me. And we talk about occupational, and we spend whatever time it takes, 1 day, 2 days, whatever it takes to go through this. And we start asking questions like, how do you differ a career from a job? How do you think you would go about building a career? Do you think you would need training, education to build a career? How would you go about getting this training? We throw out, we have 20 more questions that we trying to stimulate discussion so they can start to begin to focus on their education. As we go through each one of these, what's really important is they got to take notes. They got to write down things that come to their mind in terms of what they want for education. What's their aspirations? They're going to put in the yellow for education. And then what are they going to put in that orange for how they're going to get to that yellow? And we do that for all four. Then at the end, and I'm getting toward the end, folks, so thanks for bearing with me. But then what happens is we go to a clean wheel. So if we can just pull up the slide and it's a clean wheel, there's the full one. It'll be a clean, there you go. And we have about 2 or 3 of these in the workbook. What they do is they take the quadrant that you just seen, we just discussed in occupational, and they fill that out. And they filled one for educational. They filled one for personal. They filled one out for spiritual. And they put that together and they start to fill this out. They look at it, they revise it. There may be some overlap. There may be some missing. They revise it. They revise it again. And they do it in the context of the sessions. We're meeting with them. So we're going to get, this is their life plan. We want to get it right. And eventually they get the life plan. And that's what you've seen. So then at the end, the last thing we have is a checklist. Can you pull that up? It's the next slide, probably after that. Maybe 2, yeah. Is that the checklist?
Yes.
Yes, this is the checklist. So at the end, what we have is a checklist. It identifies the task. The task can change based on their life plan. And then the name of the entity that they need. What's the resource they need to attend to that task? And then the column on the right is the contact information, the numbers, the address, the phone numbers. And they take responsibility for this. We're not going to do this for them. They're now in a process. We've gone through it. They've grown up, and they want to do this. They take their own responsibility. Then chapter 12, is the final. It's the icing on the cake. Is the success stories that I mentioned to you. So I guess in conclusion, I just hope that you would consider using this workbook and the teacher's guide as part of your reentry program. And spread the word for us. It's turnkey. And we feel that this workbook can only enhance the wonderful stuff that you're already doing. So before turning it over to Bill, I do want to say that if you are interested in using the workbook, interested in using the teacher's guide, we stand ready to help you through Zoom calls. You can call us up and we will walk you through and get you ready to teach this program. And it's really something, I got to tell you. So God bless you all. I'm going to turn it back to you.
Thank you, Mike. I see some questions coming in, and before we get on to Stephen, what I'd like to say is we started this actually inside. We were able to get inside the prison, and obviously the COVID hit, and it really has stopped us from going inside. But the goal is to have this as a reentry program, and how it came about is, as ex-offenders, we had a resource clubs every Wednesday and Saturday. So all of a sudden we couldn't have them. So before we had to disband the Saturday morning clubs, we decided to get this book written, and it was written under the guise that we're all sitting in our bunk. We're locked in. We don't know when we're getting out for yard. The COVID has hit, and it's very limited. So we can't see our case managers. We can't go anyplace. We can't see visitors. So how would we feel? Well, it's just like in life situations. We can either go back or we can go forward. We can't stay the same. So we got very adamant. We're yelling at each other, and it took a while. It took at least 6 weeks, and we got vehement, and we put this together just as we were sitting in our bunk, saying, "This is what you have to do in order to get ready to get out. Don't wait for anyone else to do it." And we got a judge involved, and we sent in a video with the book. And of course, the book did not get around, but the video got in some of the places. But
okay, great. Yeah, no, we look forward to it. Anytime, just shoot me an email when you guys are ready to talk, and I'll keep it in mind. If I haven't heard from you by
Scott, you need to
update on my calendar, I'll ask. I'll check in.
Scott, you need to mute yourself. Scott, you need to mute.
That was a commercial. All right, we're back live. And the last thing I'll say, when you see the bullseye and the red, and this is very special. It's very special to me and to anyone who's been locked up, anyone who comes into our office. We work with ex-offenders. We go into the in-house.
No, probably like, I'm trying to think. So we're mid-February now?
Bill, you keep going. I'll call Scott.
Okay. So we do that, and the bullseye is what it's all about. We all have magic in us. Anyone who comes into our office, the goal is to discover the magic. We put a hole in our soul, and guess what? 60% of the people who come into our office from prison have no idea that they have a soul. So how are we going to get them college educations? What are we going to do? It's not about that. It's about simple stuff. And that's what the business of living is. It's basic. It's Maslow. It's man's basic needs. We can't do anything until we get that. And I've said this many times. I've gone to housing meetings when they talk about everything except housing. No one wants to talk about it. It's the elephant in the room. We got to get serious about it. So it's all basic stuff. So what we do is we all try to find our magic. And here's the next two guys here certainly have found their magic. One is the next speaker is Chef Steve Albright. Steve and I were locked up together, and he became a chef and I became a reentry guy. And guess what? He would cook for me, and I was writing this business plan about business of living, and I would give it to him. So isn't that amazing? We met here in this dingy 1890 state penitentiary downtown Baltimore several years ago. And here we are today. And Steve runs a Franciscan Center cooking and program. and does amazing things with that. And Steve, you're up.
Thanks, Coach. Can you hear me? Yeah, thanks, Coach. Thanks. Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me. Thanks, Coach. Thanks, Mike. A couple things when I was listening, I just wanted to say that, I usually don't correct the coach, but he said this, the business of living started 7 years ago, when 7.5 years ago when he got out of prison. But I could tell you, he worked on this the whole time I was with him while we were in prison. We would walk the yard, and I'd hear about this reentry program. I'm say, Coach, we're locked up. But it was an amazing thing. And how Coach and I met was by chance. Someone just introduced us over a magazine, and really, when he asked me where I was from, and I told him this little town in New Jersey, he actually played basketball with my basketball coach's brother, which really scared me because no one knows of West New York, New Jersey, and Bill Gertner did. So that was amazing. And I want to thank all of you chaplains and people that go into the prison, because through so I met Bill. I was a practicing Buddhist, believe it or not, and I was the only Buddhist at the Maryland Penitentiary. And on Monday evenings there was Buddhist service, and on Monday evening there was Catholic service. And one night they introduced me and asked me to come into their group. And that same deacon that gave the Prodigal Son book to Bill gave me 7 Story Mountain, Thomas Merton, and I've never looked back. And I started going to attending Catholic services every Monday when I was supposed to be in Buddhist service. So Bill is actually my godfather. So I am Catholic now, and I asked him to be my godfather a few years ago when I came into the faith. But for me, the one big part of that it's always so big is the spiritual aspect of this program, and not completely understanding things. And I understood while I was in prison what I did was wrong, and but trying to figure out, I think there was a question about reentry, bringing in. I mean, my first day in prison was the first day I was thinking about getting out of prison, and how do I do that? And I think that's the same question on everybody's mind that's in prison. How do I get out of this, and how do I get home? And I spent 6 years incarcerated, and I all over different jails up in not up in Hagerstown, but in the Lower Eastern Shore of Maryland, and then in Baltimore where I met Bill. But learning about my own personal spirituality and sitting, I learned of a word called synchronicity, and didn't understand what that meant until I started following and believing things that I could not necessarily explain or understand. One thing is with my sobriety. I mean, with God willing, it'll be May 29th. I'll have 14 years without a drink, and that is in itself is amazing, because I love wine. I still love wine. I just don't drink wine. But and then coming out and getting an opportunity to go to culinary school, following my dream. I knew I needed to. I worked in security many years ago in New York, and had a very successful job. And not being able to carry a gun anymore, I had to realize what I was going to do. So cooking was a passion. I used to cook for Bill and the guys on the tier, but having the chance to go to culinary school here in Baltimore, and it was something that we talk about coaching and mentoring, and Bill has been a very, very, very big part of my mentoring. And because I get out of prison, where do I want to go back to New Jersey? I want to go home, and I couldn't go home. I had to stay here in Maryland. So I remember these magic words. He said, "Grow where you're planted." And so they planted me here in Baltimore, and I'm still here 7 years later, because Sunday I'll be home for 7 years from prison. So I went to culinary school, and then just jumping and following, Bill and others like Bill. It led me to the Catholic faith, where I had a big influence when Bill called me and said, "Hey, there's this priest that needs an assistant." And I never heard of this cooking priest, Father Leo. And I went and interviewed again, God working in many different ways in the Holy Spirit. Father Leo lived actually 4 blocks from where I lived. So it made sense. Why not go work for a guy? I can basically roll out of bed and walk to work, and I wasn't taking all those chances at restaurants anymore. But again, through them and then learning about the Franciscan Center, because we used to do some volunteering there, I eventually moved around to a couple different nonprofits and then found my home here in Baltimore at the Franciscan Center, where I'm the current culinary director. And through this last year I've been there, we've done amazing things. But the one big thing that I'm really proud of is that we're about to start a culinary training academy for those on the margin, those that are underserved. And we are incorporating parts of the business of living into our program. And because I'm going to work with ex-offenders. I mean, I know the language. I am one, or an ex-convict, as I like to call myself. I like to feel the brazenness of the ex-convict, instead of the returning citizen, which is the political term. But we're going to use this book as well as other things. Of course, teaching people how to cook, but it's life skills, and that's one of the things that that every person coming home, I think, needs to learn and understand is, how we lived wasn't necessarily the way that we should have been living. So I want to thank you all for just giving me those few minutes to chat. And I guess I'll throw it over to Mark.
Hello, everyone. How are you doing? I am so.
Hold on, Mark.
Yes.
Hold on. So I'd like to continue with the magic formula, which is the middle of our dartboard, and we need to get the magic back. When we destroyed ourselves and ended up in incarceration, we put a hole in our soul, and that's what Steve talked about, the spiritual component to our educational, occupational, personal, and spiritual business of living program. And the spiritual component is really the key that makes our program. It makes Gatekeepers different, because I've seen so many demonstrations and things like this, programs, and everyone's talking about their reentry program, and they talk about housing, they talk about this, and it's almost impossible to do that stuff. But without a spiritual component, in 7 years of running Gatekeepers, I can almost tell what's going to happen with the individuals. Without the spiritual component, it is a struggle. So, and Mark Wilkes has done amazing things. He got out of prison maybe less than 2 years ago. He has his own convenience store in downtown Hagerstown, and he's about to start one in Frederick, Maryland. And of course, he doesn't have any money, but I don't know how he's doing it, but he will tell you how he does it. And Mark has done some amazing things in the city. He lives downtown, as I do, and our job is to be role models in this prison economic city, if you will, to put it bluntly. And so we bring up that challenge every day. And Mark has just done some great things, and the senators and the state and the federal government has come around to look at his program, and he just started like Steve did, and like myself. We're examples of what you people are doing this, and why you're listening to us, and why you do what you do every day. So I just hope you understand that everything that we're talking about, you have been part of it, one way or another. So Mark, go ahead. Go ahead, Mark. Mark.
Sorry about that, little technical glitch there. How's everybody doing? I would like to thank Bill and Gatekeepers for this opportunity. First of all, you know, my outlook of life before I came home was kind of dismal, and I had a lot of people in my corner that really pulled for me, even when I didn't pull for myself. But first, let me introduce who I am today. I am Altamont Mark Wilkes. I am currently the owner of Carmen's Corner Store in Hagerstown and in Frederick, Maryland, and also Retail for Real, which is a logistics delivery company. We deliver auto parts for a major dealership in Frederick, Maryland. I've been home since 2018, and it's been quite an experience. I really didn't think I'd be this successful at this point as I have, but it wasn't on my own that I became this successful, not with money, but with progress, because money will come later. What I've learned from the business of living is that you must concentrate on those essential needs. And this is what is not being taught to offenders while they are serving their sentence. And this is what the book really focuses on. It's not only changing the outlook and perspective of the individual, but to change their mindset in a way that allows them to accept, one, their situation as it is, two, accept the spirituality of God into their life, and live out a life that is positive and that you can actually wake up in the morning with purpose. And this is what I've learned. Now, while I was in the penitentiary, I experienced uh, very little in the way of resources that would allow me to build myself up while I was incarcerated, so that when I went home, I can be economically viable and just a productive individual. And thank God for prison ministry. And I am not the only soul that has been touched by prison ministry. But I want to stay on focus. Society today has lost focus on what penitentiary really means. Penitentiary actually comes from Latin, and it means a repentance. A penitentiary is a place you are sent to serve out a sentence. Even the cells is synonymous with the cells that monks go to after their day is done. We need to really focus again on touching the individual and solving the problem of why they became incarcerated. This in itself solves the problem of not only incarceration, but of the revolving door of incarceration. Bill hit upon something that is very important. Washington County is a prison industry county. That being said, programs like Gatekeepers is not only essential, there's a vacuum for programs like ours. We fill that void inside and out with the necessary resources and network. This program can produce many me's in 18 months. And I'm not being braggadocious. I'm simply going to state the accomplishments that I've achieved because of this program. I want to state something bullseye means a lot to me because I was once this bullseye. When I lived a life of crime, when I spent my days thinking that I was more clever than I actually was, I was playing by a different workbook, and the lessons I learned from that workbook did not work. I ended up in prison, but it was by the grace of God that I was able to have not only a family that cared about me, but friends that cared about me. I was finding it difficult after 20 years in prison. I had no connection with the outside world, except for what I saw on TV or what I heard from individuals that came back to prison. I didn't want their information. They came back. I sought out individuals that didn't come back, that can help me maybe while I was inside, help me try to transition and be prepared for what's outside. My choices were limited. However, I had a friend and still have this friend. He's my best friend, Bill Pruden. He's a professor at Mount St. Mary's College in this area. Well, Mount St. Mary's University, excuse me. And Bill, this is the letter that Bill and I corresponded while I was in prison. And Bill sought out other Bill. And he found Gatekeepers for me. And he said, you know, this is a program I think you'll be interested in and can help you transition, because nobody really had answers for me. Bill Pruden and all his intellectual prowess, he's a professor of things other than coming home from incarceration. And Bill and Gatekeepers was there for me. And it made a difference in my life because while I was incarcerated, I became more intelligent. I not only became more intelligent, I became stronger. I became a better me. But this better me had a mother that cared about him and a whole family that cared about him. This me, when I went in, my daughter looked like this. And it hurt me for years to watch my daughter grow up in pictures. When I came home, I said to myself, you know, I can't let this happen again. I need to make a connection with my daughter. Gatekeepers and Bill helped me make that connection with my daughter. I don't know if anybody can see this, but it's so splendid that I went from this to this, and I was afraid, and Bill helped me through it. And you can't buy that. You can't buy it. Bill didn't know I was going to bring this up, but you can't buy that, you know? And it's so important to have these connections because he helped me. And that help alone made me say to myself, wow, not only can I do this, but here's somebody I can talk to that knows what I'm going through. When I needed a place to live, Bill was there for me. When I was struggling with finding employment, I was working for everybody I could because I really believed that if I didn't find employment, I would end up back in the hood. And not to brag, but I would have taken over maybe 2 cities by now because I had enough time to think about it. But that's not what I was thinking about. I was thinking about coming home and taking over maybe a little corner, cleaning it up and making it a place where children can play something that I didn't have. I had the aspirations because of the business of living to open up a business and carve out my own living. And I said to myself, I know if I can go from that guy in the newspaper that the police was looking for to this guy to doing this type of stuff, I never gave out dinners in my life. And it felt so good. It felt so good to do it. And you know, just even with my grand opening, my mom was so proud of me to finally say that her son is in the newspaper for something good. And I can never say that it was all on my own. It was by the grace of God, and it was by me being involved as not only a peer mentor, but as a participant in Gatekeepers. I truly believe in this program, so much so that I live it like I lived my old life. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. When I was involved in my former life, I took it very seriously. And because I took it that seriously, I paid the cost of those wrong choices with my time and my service. I can truly say, if I had the entrepreneurial inspirations that I can now become to others, I would have never become incarcerated, because I never had anybody to come and tell me that I was an entrepreneur. I couldn't even spell it, but I knew how to sell drugs.
Mark, yeah, sorry, yeah, we're right at time, but
Yes,
if you have, I want to give you time if there's maybe 15, 20, 30 seconds here.
I'll wrap it right up, sir. I just want to say this. The transitional and transmutational powers of this program will resonate not only with the individual, but the individual's family and his community. We can all get this together, and we need you. Thank you for your time, and we greatly appreciate you, Father. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Wow, what a what a powerful testimony for the power of an inside outside approach to reentry, and really, I mean, Bill, I think what Mark said, and certainly what Stephen said, I mean, this is why programs, ministries fundamentally like yours matter, the holistic approach, and taking all of that into consideration. But we do have to wrap up here quickly. There were a number of really good questions. I'm guessing we can save some of these questions and maybe send them out, or somehow connect these questions to you all, to you, Bill and Mike and Stephen and Mark, and then you can respond accordingly, hopefully, if we're able to do that. But just to let you know that Jared has put up the link to the workbook on the website of CPMC. So you can find out more information about the workbook on the CPMC website. And also, just so you know, on March 4th, we will have our next town hall meeting again, still working on and discussing the issues surrounding race and racism as it relates to prison ministry and reentry ministry as well. So we have a group that will be discussing the topic of race, continuing what has already been going on for the conversations that we've had over the past couple of months. So please feel free to join us March 4th. And then March 18th, we will have our next town hall meeting on reentry with Catholic Charities, and focusing on youth empowerment ministries there, I think in Santa Clara, if I'm not mistaken, Karen. So that will be on March 18th. So again, always thank you for tuning in, and for all the ministries and missions that are involved, that are represented here. We pray blessings, especially during this Lenten season, that we may do our work in repairing the needs and lessening the oppression that so many of our sisters and brothers are experiencing, both inside and on the outside. All right. So with that, I don't know, Karen, if there was anything final, anything that you had on your end that I need to. Okay, then we're all good. All right. God bless you, and pray that you all have a blessed Lent.
Thank you, Father.